The great hall of the Felinarix Empire smelled of incense and old power. Pillars of black stone rose toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Thousands of cat-like warriors sat in curved rows, their golden eyes fixed on the two figures standing before the imperial throne. Princess Kiravine Shadowmane stood tall and proud, her silver fur gleaming under the floating lights. She was 7 feet of grace and barely hidden strength. Her claws, usually retracted, kept sliding out with nervousness she could not hide. Beside her stood Marcus Cole, human, 5 feet 11 inches. No claws, no fangs, no fur. Just a man in a borrowed ceremonial robe that did not quite fit his shoulders. They were here to complete their bonding ceremony. After 3 years of working together, after countless nights of talking until the stars changed position, after a love that had grown slowly and then all at once, they were finally making it official. The old Empress herself had approved their union, but approval and acceptance were very different things. Hi, Arbiter Vexter rose from his seat among the tribunal. He was ancient by Felinarix standards, his black fur streaked with gray, but his body was still thick with muscle. He had killed 17 challengers in his youth. He had never lost a fight. He walked down the steps slowly, his eyes never leaving Marcus. The crowd grew quiet. "Before this bonding is sealed," Vexter announced, his voice filling the hall, "I invoke my right as High Arbiter to question the worthiness of this candidate." Kira's hand found Marcus's arm. Her grip was tight enough to bruise. Marcus did not react. Vexter began to circle them. He moved like all Felinarix moved, like a predator who had never known fear. He stopped in front of Marcus and looked down at him. 5 feet 11 inches, Vexter said loudly. Weight, approximately 180 pounds. No natural weapons. No armor. Endurance rating. He paused and smiled, showing all his fangs. Adequate for an herbivore. Laughter rolled through the hall. Hundreds of Felinarix warriors found this very funny. His species, Vexter continued, comes from a small wet planet on the edge of nowhere. They have no claws, no real teeth. They cannot see in the dark. They cannot hear a heartbeat from across a room. They are slow. They are weak. They are. He leaned close to Marcus, close enough that his breath moved the human's hair. Prey. More laughter. Louder now. Marcus said nothing. His face showed nothing. Kira had seen that look before. It was the look he wore when negotiations were about to go very badly for the other side. "I find this human unfit," Vexter declared, turning to address the tribunal. "Unfit to stand beside royal blood. Unfit to share the bed of a princess. Unfit to one day help rule this empire." He raised one clawed hand. "I invoke the ancient law. I demand the Alpha Trials." The laughter stopped. Even Kira drew in a sharp breath. The Alpha Trials had not been run in 400 years. They were 7 challenges designed to test everything a Felinarix leader needed to be. They were also designed to kill anyone who was not worthy. "The law is clear," Vexter continued, smiling at the sudden silence. "Any who question the worthiness of a royal consort may demand the trials. If the candidate refuses, the bonding is void. If the candidate fails," his smile widened, "he dies. And the princess who chose him is exiled in shame. No." Kira stepped forward, her fur rising with anger. "I refuse on his behalf. This is an old law, meant for old times. It has no place here. The princess cannot refuse," Vexter said smoothly. "Only the candidate can refuse. Those are the rules." He turned back to Marcus. "So, little human, what do you say? Will you run back to your wet little planet? Or will you stay and die for love?" The hall was completely silent now. Every golden eye was fixed on the small human, Standing alone before the might of an empire, Marcus looked at Vexter for a long moment. Then he looked at Kira. Then he did something that confused everyone watching. He smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It was not a scared smile. It was the smile of a man who had just been handed exactly what he wanted. "High Arbiter," Marcus said, his voice calm and clear. "I have a question before I give my answer." Vexter's eyes narrowed. "Ask," the ancient law. "If a candidate completes all 7 trials, what happens?" Vexter waved a dismissive hand. "An impossible question. No outsider has ever completed the trials. Humor me." The High Arbiter's tail twitched with annoyance. "Fine. If a candidate completes all 7 trials, he earns the right to challenge for the imperial throne itself. Happy?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Very." He turned to face the full tribunal. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the great hall. "I accept the Alpha trials." Kira grabbed his arm. "Marcus, no. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. These trials were designed for Felinaric's warriors at the peak of their strength. You are human. You are underestimated," Marcus finished quietly. He took her hand and held it gently. "Kira, I did not survive 3 wars, 6 assassination attempts, and 14 years of galactic politics to let some overgrown housecat tell me who I'm allowed to love." Behind him, Vexter heard the insult. His claws extended fully, scraping against the stone floor. "You will regret those words, human." Marcus did not turn around. He was still looking at Kira, still holding her hand. "I have been underestimated my entire life," he said softly, for her ears alone. "By enemies who thought humans were weak. By allies who thought we were simple. By everyone who looked at our small bodies and blunt teeth and saw prey." His grip tightened on her hand. "They were all wrong. And so is he." Kira searched his eyes. She had learned to read human faces over 3 years. She knew when Marcus was lying. She knew when he was scared. She knew when he was bluffing. He was doing none of those things now. "1 week," Vexter announced to the crowd. "The human has 1 week to prepare. Then the trials begin." He laughed, and the sound echoed off the black stone walls. "Enjoy your final days, little prey. Try not to spend them all crying." The tribunal joined his laughter. Warriors who had killed dozens found the whole thing very amusing. A human in the Alpha trials. It was the best joke they had heard in centuries. Marcus stood silent among the laughter, still holding Kira's hand, still wearing that small, strange smile. He was not thinking about the trials ahead. He was thinking about something his grandfather had told him long ago, back on Earth. Back when humans had only just reached the stars. "Boy," the old man had said, "our ancestors used to hunt by following animals until their hearts gave out. Not faster, not stronger, just more stubborn. Remember that. A human who refuses to quit is the most dangerous thing in the universe." The laughter continued around him. Marcus Cole refused to quit. The training grounds smelled of old blood and older glory. Stone arenas, cracked by centuries of combat, spread across the palace grounds like scars on skin. No one had used them properly in 400 years. Marcus stood in the center of the largest arena, looking small against the ancient architecture. His assigned instructor watched him from the shadows. General Tyrsa Bloodfang had not wanted this job. She had killed 30 warriors in her prime. She had led armies across 3 star systems. She had watched her own mate die in the last Alpha trials, 4 centuries ago, when she was young and foolish enough to believe in love. Now she was old. Her orange fur had faded to pale gold. Her joints ached in the morning, and she had been ordered to train a human for trials that would certainly kill him. "Show me how you fight," she commanded. Marcus nodded. He settled into a stance that looked wrong to her eyes. His weight was too far back. His hands were too low. Everything about it screamed vulnerability. Tiresome moved. One moment she was 10 feet away. The next she was on top of him, claws extended, going for the throat. Marcus was not there. He had stepped sideways, just barely, letting her momentum carry her past. Before she could turn, he had moved again, putting distance between them. "You run," Tysa growled. "Like prey." "I reposition," Marcus corrected. "Like someone who knows he can't match your speed." She attacked again. And again. And again. Each time Marcus gave ground. Each time he slipped away from her claws by inches. He never struck back. He never tried to win. He just kept moving, kept breathing, kept watching her with those strange flat eyes. After 15 minutes, Tyrsa was breathing hard. Her muscles burned with the acid of repeated explosive movements. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Marcus was barely sweating. "You fight wrong," she accused, trying to hide how tired she was. "You retreat when you should attack. You watch when you should strike. You breathe when you should be killing." Marcus nodded. "Yes, that will get you killed in the trials. Will it?" Marcus walked to a bench and sat down. Not from exhaustion, she realized. Just because he wanted to sit. "General, how long do Felinarics usually fight? In real combat?" Tyrsa frowned at the question. "A true fight is over in seconds. A minute at most. We are ambush predators. Fast, powerful, decisive. And what happens if the fight goes longer?" "It doesn't. But if it did?" Tyrsa's frown deepened. No one had ever asked her that question. Fighting was fighting. You attacked. You won. The idea of a fight lasting more than a minute was like asking what would happen if water flowed upward. "You would get tired," she admitted finally. "We are not built for long battles." Marcus smiled. It was a strange smile. Patient. Almost sad. "General, my species evolved on the plains of Africa. Hot sun. Flat land. Prey that could run faster than us." He leaned forward. "Do you know how we hunted?" Tyrsa said nothing. "We followed them. Not faster. Not stronger. Just longer. We would pick an animal and walk after it. When it ran, we walked. When it stopped, we walked. When it ran again, we walked. For hours. For days sometimes." His eyes met hers. Until its heart gave out. Until it literally could not run anymore. And then we killed it. The arena was very quiet. "Your people are sprinters," Marcus continued. "Built for explosive power. Kill or be killed in seconds. Mine are marathoners. Built to just keep going, long after anything else would have stopped." Tyrsa stared at him. For the first time in 400 years, she felt something she had forgotten existed. That night, Kira found Marcus in the palace library. He was surrounded by old books, scrolls covered in dust, records that had not been touched in centuries. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Research." He held up a scroll. "Did you know that in the last 1,000 years of alpha trials, no one has ever actually failed the third challenge by being too weak? They all failed by going insane." Kira sat beside him. Her tail curled around his waist automatically. A gesture of comfort she had learned he enjoyed. "Marcus, I need to tell you something." Her voice was low. "Serious. I have been investigating Vexter. He has been manipulating things. Choosing the warriors you will face. Preparing special obstacles. He does not want you to just fail. He wants to make sure you die painfully." Marcus did not look surprised. "I assumed as much. This does not worry you?" He turned to face her. In the dim library light, his eyes looked older than usual. Heavier. "Kira, Every enemy I have ever faced has underestimated humans. They see small bodies and blunt teeth and slow reflexes, and they think they know what we are. He reached up and touched her face gently. They don't. They have no idea what millions of years of evolution designed us to do. And what is that? Survive. His voice was simple, matter of fact. Not through strength, not through speed. Through pure, stubborn refusal to die. Through adaptation. Through the willingness to suffer longer than anything else in the galaxy. Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been burning in her since the Great Hall. Are you afraid? Marcus considered the question honestly. She had always loved that about him. He never gave quick answers to hard questions. Yes, he said finally. I am afraid of failing you. I am afraid of what happens to you if I die. He paused. But I am not afraid of the trials themselves. Pain is temporary. Death is possible. But giving up? He shook his head. That is not something humans do well. The night before the first trial, Kira found him on the balcony of their shared chambers. He was staring up at alien stars, his face unreadable. You could still run, she whispered. We could leave. Find some corner of the galaxy where they would never find us. Marcus turned to look at her. And for just a moment, the diplomat's mask fell away. What she saw underneath was not the calm negotiator she had fallen in love with. It was something older. Something forged in fire and blood, and the desperate history of a species that had clawed its way to the stars through sheer refusal to accept extinction. I'm not running, he said quietly. I am done being underestimated. I am done watching people look at humans and see weakness. His voice hardened. Tomorrow, I start showing them what we really are. Kira pulled him close. Her fur was warm against his skin. Her heart beat against his chest, faster than a human heart. Stronger than a human heart, but his heart, she knew, would still be beating long after hers had stopped. That was what made humans terrifying. They just kept going. The first trial was called The Hunt. They released Marcus into the Royal Hunting Preserve at dawn. 50 square miles of engineered wilderness, filled with genetically perfect predators. His target was a Void Stalker, a nightmare creature of shadow and silence that had killed over 100 Felinarix hunters across the centuries. The rules were simple. Track the beast. Subdue it. Bring it back alive. The Tribunal watched through floating cameras, expecting entertainment. Vexter had personally selected the largest, most aggressive stalker in the preserve. He expected the human to die within the first hour. Marcus walked into the forest and disappeared. For 2 days, nothing happened. The cameras could not find him. The stalker could not find him. He simply vanished into the wilderness like a ghost. The Tribunal grew restless. Some accused him of hiding. Others laughed at his cowardice. Vexter smiled and waited. The human would have to emerge eventually. The stalker would find him, and then they would watch him die. On the morning of the third day, Marcus Cole walked out of the forest. He was not running. He was not wounded. He was leading the Void Stalker on a rope made of twisted vines, walking calmly while the massive predator stumbled behind him. The creature was alive. It was unharmed. It was also completely exhausted, barely able to put one foot in front of the other. The Tribunal fell silent. I don't understand, someone whispered. He never fought it. How did he capture it? Marcus stopped in the center of the arena and looked up at the watching crowd. When he spoke, his voice was calm. I didn't need to fight it. I just needed to follow it. He shrugged. Humans invented patience. We invented the long game. That creature is faster than me, stronger than me, deadlier than me. But it cannot run forever. His eyes found Vexter in the crowd. Nothing can. The second trial was called the Gauntlet. 5 warriors. 5 consecutive fights. No rest between them. The only requirement was survival. Marcus did not win. The first warrior was a young male named Karn, eager to prove himself. He was fast, strong, and completely overconfident. Marcus lasted 3 minutes before being thrown across the arena like a toy. He got back up. The second warrior was more careful. She studied his movements, learned his patterns, then broke 2 of his ribs with a single strike. He got back up. The third warrior was a veteran, old and experienced. He did not make the mistake of underestimating the human. He systematically dismantled Marcus's defenses, opened cuts on his arms and face, and put him on the ground 7 times. 7 times. Marcus got back up. By the 4th fight, Marcus could barely stand. His left eye was swollen shut. Blood ran down his face in streams. His broken ribs made every breath agony. He got back up. The 5th warrior was Vexther's personal champion, a massive female named Shara who had never lost a fight. She beat Marcus so badly that the medical team started preparing for recovery. She broke his arm. She cracked his skull. She put him down so hard that the stone floor cracked. The crowd waited for him to stay down. Marcus Cole put his one good hand on the ground. He pushed himself to his knees. He swayed, nearly fell, caught himself, and he stood up. Shara stared at him. Blood dripped from her claws. She had given him wounds that would have killed most Felinarics. "Why won't you stay down?" she demanded. Marcus spat blood onto the stone. His voice was a ragged whisper. "Because I'm not done yet." He raised his fists. One arm was broken. One eye was blind. He could barely breathe through his shattered ribs, but he raised his fists. The trial required survival through 5 fights. It did not require winning. When the bell rang to mark completion, Marcus was still standing. Barely, but standing. The third trial was called the Silence. 3 days in absolute sensory deprivation. No light, no sound, no sensation. Nothing but the inside of your own mind. For the Felinarics, this was the most feared trial. They were ambush predators, dependent on their hyperactive senses. Take those away, and most went insane within hours. Their minds, designed for constant input, began creating their own signals, hallucinations, voices, nightmares. Marcus entered the deprivation chamber with a small smile. "What is he smiling about?" Vexther demanded. "Does he not understand what this trial does?" General Tyrsa, watching from the observation room, said nothing. But she was beginning to understand. 3 days later, Marcus emerged from the chamber calm and rested. He had spent the time organizing old memories, reviewing past negotiations, and reciting every song lyric he could remember from his childhood on Earth. "Humans," he told the stunned tribunal, "invented solitary confinement. We put our own people in boxes like that as punishment. Some of them stay sane for years." He stretched, working out the stiffness. "We are very good at being alone with our thoughts. It's one of our stranger talents." The fourth trial was called the Venom Court. Marcus was injected with a truth serum specifically designed to make Felinarics reveal their deepest secrets. Then he was sent into a political dinner with Vexther SOIs, expected to humiliate himself with uncontrolled honesty. What the tribunal did not know was that humans metabolized the serum differently. It worked, yes, but Marcus had spent 20 years learning a skill that most species never developed, the art of telling the truth in ways that revealed nothing. "What do you think of Felinaric's culture?" one of Vexther's allies asked, expecting ammunition. "I find it fascinating," Marcus answered honestly. "If occasionally primitive." The table went quiet. "And what is your true opinion of High Arbiter Vexther?" Marcus considered the question. The serum demanded honesty, so he gave them honesty. I think he is exactly the leader your conservative faction deserves." It took a moment for the insult to land. By then, Marcus had moved on to complimenting the wine. 4 trials complete. Marcus Cole stood in the medical bay, letting machines repair his broken bones, watching the replay of his fights on a screen. He had been beaten, broken, humiliated, and he was still standing in the tribunal halls. The laughter had stopped. The jokes had dried up. Something cold had settled into the hearts of warriors who had never known fear. The human kept getting back up, no matter what they did to him. He kept getting back up, and they were beginning to realize that maybe, just maybe, they had made a terrible mistake. The 5th trial was called The Weight. Contestants had to carry the burden of empire, a stone block scaled to their body weight, across 50 miles of volcanic wasteland. The scorching wastes were exactly what they sounded like. Black rock. Rivers of lava. Air hot enough to cook meat. The Felinarics had always struggled with this trial. Their bodies were built for explosive power, not sustained effort. The heat drained them. The distance broke them. More contestants had died in the wastes than in any other trial. Marcus stood at the starting line, looking out at the hellscape ahead. The stone block assigned to him weighed 180 pounds, exactly his body weight. He would have to carry it for 50 miles through temperatures that could melt steel. "This is suicide," Kira whispered beside him. "Even for you. The heat alone will kill you." Marcus turned to look at her. He was smiling again, that strange patient smile she was beginning to understand. "Kira, do you know where humans evolved?" "Your home planet, Earth. More specifically." He pointed at the volcanic landscape ahead. "We evolved on the African savanna. Hot sun, endless distances. No shade, no water." He started stretching, preparing his muscles. "We evolved to run in conditions exactly like this. Our bodies learned to sweat to cool ourselves while we moved. We lost our fur so we wouldn't overheat. We developed the most efficient long-distance cooling system of any species in our galaxy." He lifted the stone block onto his shoulders. It was heavy. It would only get heavier. "The Felinarics see this as a test of strength," he said. "They're wrong. It's a test of endurance. And endurance is what humans do." He started walking. For the first 10 miles, the tribunal watched with professional interest. The human was moving steadily, not fast, but not slow. His breathing was controlled. His pace was mechanical. By 20 miles. They were confused. Most Felinarics contestants were struggling by now, stopping to rest, fighting the heat. Marcus just kept walking, one foot in front of the other. Mile after mile. By 30 miles, they were worried. The human should have collapsed. The heat should have killed him. Instead, he was sweating heavily, his body's cooling system working exactly as evolution had designed it. He never stopped moving. By 40 miles. They were afraid. Marcus Cole finished the trial 3 hours ahead of the expected survival window. He walked out of the volcanic wastes, set down the stone block, and asked if anyone had water. The medical team had to physically restrain him from going back to help retrieve their equipment. The 6th trial was called the bond. This, everyone agreed, would be the humans' failure. Felinarics were naturally telepathic with their bonded mates. They could sense each other across vast distances, share emotions, feel each other's heartbeats. It was the foundation of their marriage traditions. Humans had no telepathy. None at all. Their minds were closed, isolated. Alone. The trial required Marcus to find Kira while blindfolded, guided only by their connection, across a vast maze that covered an entire floor of the palace. No sound, no sight, no physical contact. Only the bond. "He cannot do this," Vexter announced to the tribunal. "This is impossible for his species." He will wander the maze until he collapses from exhaustion. Marcus stood at the maze entrance, blindfold already in place. He could not see. He could not hear Kira. He had no telepathic abilities whatsoever, but he had something else. 3 years. 3 years of working beside her. 3 years of late-night conversations. 3 years of learning the tiny sounds she made when she was thinking. The way her breathing changed when she was worried. The specific rhythm of her heartbeat when she was near. 3 years of paying attention. Of caring enough to notice. Humans did not have telepathy, but they had something older, something deeper. They had the ability to learn another person so completely that they became a part of you. Marcus stepped into the maze. He moved slowly at first, hands trailing along walls he could not see. The maze was designed to confuse, to disorient. But he was not looking for walls. He was listening for Kira. Somewhere in the darkness, she was waiting. And even without telepathy, even without any psychic abilities, he knew her well enough to find her. A tap. 3 taps, actually. Kira's claw against stone, so faint that no Felinarics would have noticed. But Marcus had spent 3 years learning that sound. She tapped 3 times when she was getting impatient. He turned left, a held breath. Kira always held her breath when Marcus was about to make a mistake. He was going the wrong way. He turned right, a laugh. So quiet it was barely a whisper. Kira laughed in a very specific way when she was pleased. He was getting warmer. Marcus navigated the maze in 20 minutes. When he removed the blindfold, Kira was standing in front of him, tears streaming down her silver fur. "How?" she asked. "How did you do that?" Marcus took her face in his hands. His touch was gentle, familiar. They had done this 1,000 times. "You tapped your claw 3 times when you were getting impatient," he said. "You held your breath when I was going the wrong way. You laughed when I got close." He smiled. "I don't need telepathy, Kira. I just need you. I've spent 3 years learning you. Every sound you make, every breath you take, every tiny movement that tells me what you're thinking." He pulled her close. "That's what humans do instead of telepathy. We pay attention. We learn. We remember. And we love hard enough that the other person becomes part of us." The tribunal was silent. Even Vexler had no words. The 7th trial was called. The throne's questioned on it was the only trial whose nature was unknown until faced. Marcus entered the ancient throne chamber alone. Expecting combat, expecting tests of strength, or will Dot instead. He found the dying Empress Dot. She was old beyond measuring, kept alive by machines that hummed softly in the darkness. Her fur had gone white with age. Her eyes were clouded, but her voice, when she spoke, was still strong. "The last trial," she said, "is not strength or speed or cunning. It is the question every ruler must answer." Marcus stood before her, waiting. "When you hold absolute power," the Empress asked, "and someone you love asks you to do something wrong, what do you do?" The tribunal watched on screens throughout the palace. Vexter smiled. This was a trap. Any answer would be wrong. Agree to do wrong things, and you are unfit to rule. Refuse your loved ones, and you are heartless. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Kira. He thought about power. He thought about all the times he had been asked to do wrong things by people he cared about. "You tell them no," he said finally, "and you explain why. And you love them enough to let them hate you for it." He paused. "Then you find a better way together." The Empress's eyes closed. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "That is the correct answer, human. It is also the first time in 4 centuries someone has meant it." She reached out and took his hand. Her grip was weak, fragile. "The trials are complete. You have proven yourself worthy." Her clouded eyes opened one last time. Now show them what humans truly are." The announcement echoed through every hall of the palace. Marcus Cole, human, had completed all 7 alpha trials. By ancient law, he had earned the right to challenge for the imperial throne itself. The tribunal erupted into chaos. Vexter stood in the center of the storm, watching his plans crumble around him. 400 years of conservative tradition, decades of careful political maneuvering, all of it threatened by a single stubborn human who refused to die. He made his decision quickly. "The trials are void," he announced to his gathered allies. "The human cheated. The results are invalid." He drew his ceremonial blade. "We take the throne now, before the Empress can name him her successor." Across the palace, soldiers loyal to Vexter began moving. They seized communication centers. They blocked exits. They prepared for a coup that had been planned for years, waiting for the right moment. That moment had come. Kira found Marcus in their chambers, calmly putting on his diplomatic robes. "They're coming," she said urgently. "Vexter has declared the trials invalid. His soldiers are everywhere. We need to run." Marcus finished adjusting his collar. He looked at her with those strange human eyes, calm as still water. "We're not running. Marcus, there are thousands of them. You completed the trials, but you cannot fight an army." "No," Marcus agreed. "I can't." He took her hand. "But I don't have to." They walked out of their chambers together, into halls filled with armed soldiers. Vexter's warriors lined every corridor, claws extended, ready for violence. None of them moved. Marcus walked past them like they weren't there. Kira stayed close, confused, watching soldiers step aside to let them pass. "What is happening?" she whispered. "I've been talking to people," Marcus said quietly. "For the past week, while everyone was watching me bleed in the arenas, I was also having conversations. With the young warriors who watched me refuse to stay down. With the servants who had never been thanked by name before. With General Tyrsa, who lost her mate to these same trials and never stopped grieving. They rounded a corner. More soldiers. More stepping aside. Humans don't just fight with our bodies, Kira. We fight with words. With connections. With relationships built over time." He smiled slightly. "Your people see strength as physical power. Mine see it as the ability to make others want to follow you." They reached the throne chamber. Vexter was already there, surrounded by his last loyal warriors. Perhaps 50 soldiers, the true believers, the ones who had followed him for decades. They stood between him and the ancient throne, ready to kill anyone who approached. Marcus stopped 20 feet away. "High Arbiter," he said calmly. "It's over." Vexter laughed, but there was fear in it now. "Over? Look around you, human. I have 50 warriors. You have nothing. I have something better." Marcus gestured at the chamber around them. "Look at who isn't here." Vexter looked. The tribunal members who had supported him for years. The military commanders who had promised their troops. The noble houses who had sworn loyalty. None of them had come. "They're not coming," Marcus continued. "They watched me complete the trials. They watched me refuse to give up, refuse to break, refuse to be what you told them I was." His voice hardened. "And then they made a choice. They chose to believe in something better than fear." "You're still just one human," Vexter snarled. "I can kill you where you stand. You can try." Marcus took a step forward. Then another. "But let me tell you something about humans, Vexter. Something your people have never understood." He kept walking, straight toward the armed warriors. "We are the species that looked at wolves, pack predators faster and stronger than us, and we made them love us. We called them dogs. They sleep in our homes now. Another step. We looked at horses, creatures that could crush us with a single kick, and we said, 'I'm going to ride that.' Now they carry us wherever we want to go. Another step. We looked at our entire planet, filled with things that could kill us in a heartbeat, and we decided it belonged to us. Not because we were the strongest, not because we were the fastest. He was within arm's reach now. Vexter's claws twitched, because we were the most stubborn creatures evolution ever produced. Because we refused to accept limits. Because we looked at impossible odds and said, "I'll find a way." Marcus stopped directly in front of Vexter. He was shorter than the Felinarics, weaker, slower, completely vulnerable dot, and he was not afraid. "You thought I was Kira's weakness," Marcus said quietly. "You thought she needed protection from me." But he had it backwards. His eyes locked with Vexter's. "I am what happens when you threaten something a human loves. I am what happens when you push us into a corner. I am what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." Behind Vexter, his warriors exchanged uncertain looks. They had been told humans were prey. They had been told this would be easy. No one had told them about the look in a human's eyes when they had nothing left to lose. "You can kill me," Marcus continued. "Right here, right now. But it won't save you. Because you've already lost. Not to me. To everything I represent. The proof that strength isn't just about claws and teeth. That a species of soft, slow, stubborn creatures can stand against anything in the galaxy and refuse to break." Vexter's hand trembled. His claws were inches from Marcus's throat. "Choose," Marcus said. "Exile or death. Those are your options now. And choose quickly, because my wife is getting impatient." Behind Marcus, Kira stood with her own claws extended. Around her, General Tyrsa had arrived with 100 warriors who had watched Marcus complete the trials. Young soldiers, old veterans, all of them standing with the human who had shown them what stubborn really meant. Vexter looked at his 50 warriors. He looked at the army that had materialized behind the human. He looked at Marcus's calm, patient eyes. He chose exile. The coronation happened 3 days later. The dying empress named Kira her successor, as everyone expected. But then she did something unprecedented. She named Marcus not just imperial consort, but co-ruler with full authority. "The Felinaric's empire," she announced with her last breath, "will be led by partnership, by strength and patience together, by claw and cunning combined." Her clouded eyes found Marcus in the crowd. "Show them, human. Show them all what your species can do when given the chance." She died with a smile on her face. Weeks later, Marcus and Kira stood on the palace balcony, overlooking an empire in the early stages of transformation. New reforms were beginning. The rigid hierarchies were softening. Somewhere below, General Tyrsa was training young warriors in something she called persistence hunting. "They still don't entirely understand you," Kira murmured. Her tail wrapped around his waist. Marcus watched the sun set over alien mountains. He thought about Earth, about his grandfather's words, about a species that had clawed its way to the stars through sheer refusal to accept limits. "They don't need to understand me," he said. "They just need to stop underestimating all of us. Because we're out here now, humans, spreading across the galaxy. And we don't break." Kira pulled him closer. Her warmth was familiar now, comforting. "Home. What are you thinking about?" she asked. Marcus smiled. It was the same patient smile he had worn in the Great Hall, standing before a tribunal that thought he was prey. "I'm thinking about the future," he said. "About what happens when the rest of the galaxy realizes that the small, slow, clawless species from the wet little planet on the edge of nowhere is actually the most dangerous thing evolution ever created. And what happens then?" Marcus looked up at the alien stars. Somewhere out there, other species were making the same mistake Vexter had made. Looking at humans and seeing weakness. Looking at soft bodies and blunt teeth and thinking they knew what they were dealing with. They were all going to learn. Then, Marcus said quietly, We show them what we really are. Not the smartest. Not the strongest. Not the fastest. His arm tightened around Kira. Just the most stubborn species in the universe. The ones who refuse to quit. The ones who get back up every single time, no matter how many times we get knocked down. He smiled at the stars. The ones who adapt. Far below, the empire stretched out before them, changed, growing, learning, and at its heart, standing beside a feline princess who had chosen him when everyone said she was foolish. A human being watched the future unfold. He had come to this world as a diplomat. He had been mocked as prey. He had been beaten, broken, and dismissed. Now he was emperor, and he was just getting started.